Your attention is worthless. Let that sink in. It's not just unvalued, it is a liability. Every text you send, every call you make, every desperate attempt to stay on her radar actively decreases your value in her eyes. You think you're showing dedication, but she sees a man with no options, no self-respect, no life outside of her orbit. She didn't just reject you. She dismantled you piece by piece, while you willingly handed her the tools. You thought you were fighting for her, but the only battle you were in was against your own dignity, and you lost spectacularly. She didn't have to push you away. She just had to stand still and watch you run yourself into a wall, over and over, until you collapsed from exhaustion. Remember that night? The blue light of your phone illuminating your face in the dark, your thumb hovering over her name. You had crafted the perfect message, a casual yet witty line designed to reignite a conversation that had been dead for days. You hit send. The single check mark turned to 2. Delivered. Then they turned blue, red, and then nothing. Absolute, deafening silence. You watched the screen for minutes, which bled into an hour. You felt that cold knot tighten in your stomach. It wasn't anger. It was the sickening, hollow feeling of complete and utter irrelevance. You checked her social media. There she was, active, posting, liking, commenting, living a life in which you were not a character, not a supporting actor, not even an extra. You were simply an audience member she had long since forgotten was watching. In that moment, you weren't a man pursuing a woman. You were a ghost haunting a digital timeline, invisible, impotent. You had made her the center of your universe, and in doing so, you had ceased to have a universe of your own. The great philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer understood this trap perfectly. He saw human existence as driven by a relentless, blind, insatiable force he called the will, a constant striving for things that can never bring lasting satisfaction. Your obsessive pursuit was a textbook manifestation of this will. It wasn't love. It was a primal, desperate craving for validation, a bottomless pit of need that you expected her to fill. Schopenhauer argued that this will is the root of all suffering. You are the living proof of his thesis. Every action you took to satisfy your desire for her only deepened your own misery, because the desire itself was the problem. You were a prisoner to your own impulses, a slave to a need she had no obligation and no desire to fulfill. As he would say, you believe you are a free agent, but you are merely a puppet of your own will, and your strings are being pulled by your own unchecked desperation. You cannot will yourself to stop wanting her, and in that, you find your own personal hell. This relentless chase, this pathetic pageant of availability, it didn't just make you look weak. It actively destroyed any possibility of her ever seeing you as an equal, let alone a superior. Respect is not given to those who beg for it. It is a byproduct of perceived value. And a man who constantly offers his time, his energy, and his emotional stability on a silver platter, without any demand for reciprocation, signals that his resources are infinite and therefore worthless. You became predictable. Your next move was always obvious. Another text, another call, another desperate plea for a crumb of her attention. You were a game she had already figured out, a puzzle with no challenge. And once the challenge is gone, so is the interest. You weren't a mystery to be solved. You were an open book written in a language she found boring. The tragic irony is that the very thing you thought would win her over, your unwavering attention, was the very thing that guaranteed your defeat. You were trying to win a war by unilaterally disarming yourself. But what happens when the beggar stops begging? What happens when the constant noise is replaced by a sudden, unnerving silence? In the depths of that humiliation, with the cold blue light of the phone screen as your only witness, a different thought began to form. A cold, hard, strategic thought, born not of hope, but of pure, unadulterated spite and a newfound will to power. What if the only way to win the game was to stop playing? What if the only way to make her see you was to disappear completely? This is the moment where the victim dies and the strategist is born. The moment you realize that your power does not lie in what you do, but in what you consciously choose not to do. You hit the absolute bottom of your self-worth, and in that dark, empty abyss, You finally found the only weapon that could ever work. A weapon she would never see coming. A weapon built not from action, but from its complete and total, calculated absence. Before we dissect the anatomy of this strategic withdrawal and turn your weakness into an instrument of psychological dominance, I demand you take action right now. This is not a request. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico. Activate all notifications, because you cannot afford to miss a single transmission. Give this video a like to signal you are ready for the battle ahead. And in the comments below, I want to know two things. First, tell me what city or country you are watching from. Second, and more importantly, share the one moment of powerlessness that forged your will into steel. I want to read the war stories that brought you here. The moments of defeat that ignited your hunger for absolute control. Your training begins now. Let's dissect your downfall. Not with sympathy, but with the cold precision of a surgeon examining a corpse to determine the cause of death. Your authority did not vanish in a single explosive moment. It wasn't stolen from you. You gave it away, piece by piece, in a series of quiet, pathetic transactions where you traded your power for the fleeting illusion of her approval. This was not a hostile takeover. It was a voluntary liquidation of your own sovereignty. The process is always the same, a 5-act tragedy of self-betrayal, and you have played every part to perfection. It begins with the first, seemingly harmless step, the emotional concession. It happened on a Tuesday. You had plans to go to the gym, a commitment you made to yourself. She called, audibly upset over a minor conflict with a coworker. She didn't ask you to cancel your plans. She didn't have to. Simply broadcasted her distress, creating an emotional storm, and waited to see if you would abandon your own ship to come rescue hers. The old you, the man you are fighting to kill, saw this as an opportunity to be the hero, the supportive partner. You said the fatal words, "Don't worry, I'll skip the gym. I'm coming over." In that moment, the test was administered, and you failed spectacularly. She learned that her emotional state held veto power over your personal commitments. Your world could be put on hold to service her feelings. It wasn't a grand gesture of love. It was the first time you taught her that your frame was weaker than hers. She tested. You yielded. She won. This is the seed of all disrespect. You showed her that the architecture of your life was negotiable, that its foundations could be shaken by her whims. From that first concession, you slid inevitably into the second stage, the loss of control. Once she knows your priorities are subordinate to her moods, she begins to use those moods as a tool of governance. Remember the argument about where to go for dinner. You wanted steak. She wanted Italian. It wasn't a real conflict, but she treated it as one. She didn't argue with logic. She simply withdrew. Her replies became shorter. A subtle coldness entered her voice. The atmosphere grew heavy. You felt it instantly, that familiar anxiety, that desperate need to restore the peace. The argument was no longer about food. It was about alleviating the discomfort of her disapproval. So you folded. "You know what? Italian sounds great," you said, forcing a smile. You weren't choosing a restaurant. You were paying a ransom to free yourself from the emotional prison she had built around you. She didn't have to raise her voice. She didn't have to make a single demand. Her silence was dominance, not disinterest. She had outsourced the battle to your own mind, knowing your need for harmony would make you defeat yourself. This pattern repeated everywhere. With friends, with family, with your own hobbies. You started preemptively managing her moods, walking on eggshells, making choices you thought would keep her happy, not choices that aligned with your own desires. You were no longer the driver of your life. You were a passenger constantly checking the driver's face for any sign of displeasure. This leads directly to the third circle of hell, the relentless search for validation. Having surrendered control of your own emotional state, you now require her approval to feel any sense of worth. Your reality becomes a reflection in her eyes. You bought a new jacket. The first thought wasn't, "I look good." It was, "I wonder if she'll like it." You got a promotion at work. The satisfaction was incomplete until you saw her reaction. Her validation became the currency you lived on, and you were perpetually broke, perpetually begging. You started sending her texts not to communicate, but to gauge her mood, to get a hit of validation. A quick reply was a relief. A slow reply was a source of anxiety. An emoji was something to be analyzed for hours. You were a subject presenting tribute to his queen, hoping for a nod of approval. You outsourced your self-esteem, making her the sole arbiter of your value. A man who does not validate himself cannot be valued by anyone else, least of all by the woman he is tasked with this impossible burden. She doesn't see a confident partner. She sees a project, a dependent, an emotional liability. Respect is impossible under these conditions. Respect requires a degree of separation, of self-containment. You had erased all your borders, and so you descend into the fourth and most pathetic stage, complete affective dependency. You are now an addict, and her attention is your drug. Your entire neurological system is wired to her. A good morning text from her means you can have a good morning. Silence means your day is shrouded in a fog of anxiety and doubt. You can't focus at work. Your mind is a whirlwind of catastrophic scenarios. Did I do something wrong? Is she losing interest? Is she with someone else? Her power over you is absolute because your sense of self is now entirely externalized. You have no inner stability, no core of self-respect to anchor you. You are a ship without a rudder, tossed violently on the waves of her every mood and whim. This is the phase of the double text, the panicked call, the pathetic just checking in. You think you're showing you care, but you are broadcasting your desperation. It is a stench of neediness that repels attraction. She feels it as pressure, as a weight. You have become a chore. A man is meant to be a rock, a mountain she can look to for stability. You have become a puddle, reflecting her image and trembling with her every step. No one is coming to save you. You built this prison yourself, bar by bar, with every concession, every apology, every desperate plea for a scrap of her attention. The final act of your self-immolation is breaking the silence. This is the endgame. After weeks of you orbiting her, she does the most powerful thing she can do. Nothing. She withdraws. She stops replying as quickly. She gets busy. It is a strategic retreat, designed to make you panic and reveal your final card. And you do, every single time. The silence is a vacuum, and your weakness abhors it. You cannot stand the ambiguity. You need to know. So you break. You send the long paragraph, pouring out your heart, asking what's wrong, promising to do better. Or you get angry, demanding an explanation, revealing how deeply her silence has wounded you. Or, worst of all, you apologize. You apologize for things you didn't even do, just to get a response. When you apologized, you signed your surrender. You took responsibility for her distance, confirming in her mind that you were the problem. You proved that she holds all the power in the dynamic. By breaking the silence, you show her that you have no other options, that your emotional well-being is entirely in her hands. You are the gambler who has gone all in with a losing hand, and she knows it. She doesn't even have to play. She just has to wait for you to crumble. And you always do. Perhaps you're thinking, this is too harsh. I was just being a nice guy. I was in love. Let's dismantle that pathetic excuse right now. You weren't being nice. You were being weak. Niceness without a spine is not a virtue. It's a tactic of cowardice, a desperate attempt to avoid conflict and rejection. You weren't in love. You were in a state of profound addiction. Love is built on the foundation of two whole, sovereign individuals choosing to unite. You were a fragment, a half-man, trying to fuse yourself to her in order to feel complete. That is not love. It is parasitism. Another objection. But relationships are about compromise. Yes, compromise between equals. You were not compromising. You were capitulating. Compromise is when two kings negotiate the borders of their kingdoms. Capitulation is when one king hands over his crown and begs to be allowed to live in the stables. You must understand the brutal logic of power dynamics. It is not evil. It is not good. It simply is. In every interaction, there is a power frame. One person's reality is stronger, and the other person is absorbed into it. For months, for years, you have willingly dissolved yourself into her reality, and you have the audacity to be surprised that you no longer have one of your own. The fall is never visible. It doesn't announce itself. It happens in the quiet moments. The hesitation before you stated your own opinion. It was the yes you said when your entire being screamed no. It was the apology for a boundary you tried to set. It was time you explained yourself when no explanation was required. She tested you, and you failed. You pushed a boundary, just a little, to see if you would hold the line. You didn't. You rationalized it. You told yourself it wasn't a big deal, but it was everything. Every time you failed to hold the line, you taught her that your lines were meaningless. Every unanswered test is a silent victory for her, and a quiet erosion of your soul. This isn't just about her. This is how you lost respect at work when you took on extra projects without demanding extra compensation. This is how you lost respect with your friends when you became the one who always canceled plans if something better came up with her. The pattern is the same. You broadcast that your time, your energy, and your principles are cheap, and the world is more than happy to take them from you at a discount. Now that you have seen the blueprint of your own destruction, it is time for your first strategic move. This is not a suggestion, it is a command. Go to the comments section right now and answer this, not for me, but for yourself. Which of the 5 stages of weakness, emotional concession, loss of control, validation seeking, affective dependency, or breaking the silence, is your personal hell? Name the cage you are trapped in. Admitting the specific nature of your prison is the first step to tearing down its walls. To write your confession, take 3 more actions to solidify your commitment to this war. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico. Activate all notifications, because every video is a weapon you will need. And give this video a like as a signal that the weak man you were has been officially marked for death. Your transformation from a beggar to a king begins with this simple act of will. Do it now. There is no going back for the weak man. Let that be the first law of your new reality. The man who begged, who pleaded, who debased himself for a scrap of attention is dead. Do not mourn him. Do not try to revive him. His corpse is a monument to a strategy that failed. Your only path forward is the construction of the new. The man you are about to become does not negotiate from a position of weakness. He does not seek approval. He builds a reality so powerful that others either align with it or are rendered irrelevant. This is not an emotional journey of healing. This is a cold, tactical reconstruction of your entire being. Your war begins with 3 commands. They are not suggestions. They are orders. First, cut the excess. You will perform a strategic amputation. Every digital connection to her is a vector for weakness, a channel through which your emotional stability can be drained. You will block her number. You will block her on every social media platform. You will not do this with a dramatic announcement. You will not send a final self-righteous paragraph. To do so would be to admit she still has power over you. Your disappearance must be absolute, silent, and unexplained. It must be an event that happens to her, not a conversation you have with her. Delete the photos. Throw away the mementos. Erase every trace of her from your physical and digital space. This is not an act of anger. It is an act of battlefield hygiene. You are removing the enemy's listening posts from your own command center. The emotional pain you feel is the poison leaving your system. Endure it. It is the price of sovereignty. Second, install the silence. Your silence is now your primary weapon. It is not the passive, wounded silence of a child who has been punished. It is the active, predatory silence of a hunter waiting in the brush. In the past, you filled every void with your words, your texts, your desperate attempts to generate a response. You were noise. Now, you will become a vacuum. Human psychology abhors a vacuum. Her mind, accustomed to the constant stimulus of your attention, will be thrown into chaos by its sudden absence. She will ask questions, not to you, but to herself. What happened? Is he angry? Did he find someone else? Notice the shift. For the first time, the questions are about you. Your actions, or lack thereof, are now dictating her internal monologue. You have seized control of the narrative without saying a single word. Do not reconquer. Replace with a sharper silence, Let the quiet do the work. Your absence must become a presence in her mind, a question she cannot answer, a weight she cannot dismiss. Third, control the reaction. This is the internal war, the most difficult battle you will face. Your addiction to her validation will scream for a fix. Your own mind, your own will, as Schopenhauer would call it, will become your greatest enemy. It will concoct 1,000 rationalizations to break the silence. Maybe I should just check in to see if she's okay. Maybe I was too harsh. What if she needs me? Recognize these thoughts for what they are. The death throes of the weak man. They are the impulses of a slave, not the calculations of a king. Schopenhauer taught that the will is a blind, ceaseless striving that is the source of all suffering. Your desperate need for her was a perfect manifestation of this. True power, true freedom, lies not in satisfying the will, but in mastering it through intellect. When the urge to contact her arises, you will observe it, acknowledge it as the pathetic impulse of your former self, and you will deny it. Every time you deny this impulse, you strengthen the muscle of your own sovereignty. You are not suppressing your emotions. You are subordinating them to a higher, strategic purpose. With these 3 commands as your foundation, you begin the reconstruction. This is not about hope. It is a plan. Your energy, once squandered on her, will now be reinvested with ruthless efficiency into the 4 pillars of masculine power. First, the physical. You will go to the gym not to get healthy, but to build armor. You will sculpt your body into a physical manifestation of discipline and power. Every rep, every drop of sweat is a brick in the fortress of your new self. When you walk into a room, your presence should be felt before you speak. This is non-negotiable. Second, the financial. You will attack your work with a singular focus. You will demand that raise. You will start that business. Money is not about luxury. It is about options. It is about freedom. A man who controls his finances cannot. He builds his own kingdom and is not a serf in someone else's. Third, the social. You will rebuild your social life, not as a distraction, but as a demonstration of value. You will be seen in high-status places with high-status people. Your world must be seen as full, vibrant, and, most importantly, completely independent of her. A man with options is a man of power. A man with one option is a beggar. Fourth, the symbolic. You will sharpen your mind into a weapon. Read books on strategy, philosophy, history, and power. Schopenhauer himself believed the only escape from the endless suffering of the will was through asceticism or aesthetic contemplation, the elevation of the intellect over base desire. You will become a man of substance, a man whose inner world is so vast and compelling that the validation of a single person becomes an absurdity. She attempts to breach your silence, and she will. Your response must be a calculated exercise in power. She will send a casual text. Hey, how have you been? The old you would have seen this as a sign of hope, an open door. The new you sees it as a probe, a test to see if the old puppet is still on his strings. You will not respond for hours, perhaps days. When you do, your response will be short, polite, and utterly devoid of emotion. Doing well, hope you are too. No questions. No openings for further conversation. You are communicating one thing. My life is moving forward, and you are no longer a significant part of it. You are a closed door. If she wants to open it, she will have to work for it, and even then, you may decide not to let her in. You will be an absence that has weight, not a presence that implores. This minimal and unpredictable interaction keeps her off balance. She cannot get a read on you. You have become a mystery, and mystery is the foundation of attraction and respect. You think you have absorbed this strategy, but your mind is still clouded by the fog of your old weakness. This is not a game you play to get a reaction. This is the process by which you become a man who no longer needs a reaction. It is a fundamental shift in your operating system. A man who wants to be loved will be discarded. A man who imposes his presence will be feared, and from that fear, a new, more potent form of respect can grow. Now prove to me that you are not just a spectator in your own life. Prove that you are ready to become the architect of your own dominion. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico immediately. Activate all notifications, for each video is a strategic briefing you cannot afford to miss. Give this video a like as a declaration of war against the man you used to be. In the comments below, answer this with cold, hard honesty. Which of the 4 pillars, physical, financial, social, or mental, is the most broken in your life right now? And what is the very first tactical action you will take in the next 24 hours to begin its reconstruction? I don't want your hopes. I want your battle plan. Your reign begins now. We have come to the end. But this is not a conclusion. It is a coronation. The man who began this journey with you, the ghost haunting a phone screen in the dead of night, is gone. He was not saved. He was executed. In his place stands an architect of reality, a sovereign of his own domain. You have followed the commands. You cut the connections. You installed the silence. You mastered the internal chaos, and you rebuilt yourself upon the 4 pillars of power. The reconstruction is complete. Now, we witness the final test. The inevitable echo from a world you have left behind. It happens on a Thursday, 6 months after you vanished. You are not thinking of her. Your mind is occupied with the logistics of a new business venture, the weight of a heavy deadlift, the intricacies of a philosophical text. Your phone vibrates. It is an unknown number, but you know who it is. A long paragraph appears on your screen. It is a masterpiece of emotional manipulation, a carefully crafted cocktail of nostalgia, regret, and feigned vulnerability. She speaks of memories. She mentions a song you both liked. She says she saw something that reminded her of you. She asks if you ever think of her. She ends with the ultimate bait. I think I made a mistake. The old you would have felt a surge of triumphant adrenaline. The validation you craved for so long, finally served up on a silver platter. The beggar inside you would have screamed to accept the offering. But the beggar is dead. You read the words, and you feel nothing. Not joy, not even feel the same mild detachment you would feel reading a weather report for a city you will never visit. You let the message sit for a day, not as a strategy, but because you have more important things to do. Your response is not a consideration, but an administrative task to be cleared. You do not block her. That would be an emotional reaction. That would be an admission that her words still have the power to affect you. Instead, you reply. A single sentence. A sentence that is polite, definitive, and utterly soul-crushing in its indifference. You write, I wish you all the best. There is no question. There is no opening. There is no emotion. It is the digital equivalent of a closed door, bolted and barred, with a sign that reads, No trespassing. You have not just rejected her advance, you have rejected the entire history that gave her the audacity to make it. You have communicated, in 5 simple words, that her chapter in your life is not just over, it has been expunged from the record. In that moment, her power over you evaporates into nothingness, because power requires an object to act upon, and you are no longer there. This is the ultimate reversal of the power dynamic. The chessboard has not been flipped in your favor. The chessboard has been incinerated. You did not win the game she was playing. You created a new game, with new rules, on a level she cannot even comprehend. She was playing checkers. You are now playing 3-dimensional chess, and your opponent is not her. It is the entire world. Her mistake was believing she was the prize. Your victory was realizing that the prize was always your own sovereignty. He thought your silence was a tactic to get her back. She could not fathom that your silence was the sound of you forgetting she ever existed. The respect you now command was not won by making her miss you. It was forged in the fires of your own self-creation, in the silent, lonely hours at the gym, in the relentless pursuit of your purpose. She didn't give you respect. She is simply a witness to the respect you now demand from reality itself. Let this be etched into your soul. Respect is not a negotiation. It is a broadcast. It is a frequency you emit, and those who are not tuned to it simply do not hear you. You do not ask for it. You do not explain why you deserve it. You become it. Your presence, your actions, your very being become a non-negotiable statement of your own value. Schopenhauer saw the world as a brutal arena of competing wills, each striving for dominance. You have transcended this battle. By mastering your own will, by detaching from the desperate need for external things to complete you, you have achieved a state of philosophical freedom that few men ever know. You are no longer a puppet of your desires. You are the master of your own universe. You sought to conquer her, but in the process, you were forced to conquer yourself, which is the only victory that has ever mattered. The pathetic irony is that by becoming the man she would now do anything to have, you have become a man who would never want her. Her attraction is to the power you now hold, but that power was built on the foundation of her absence. She is a ghost from a past life, a reminder of a weakness you have burned away. To return to her would be to desecrate the temple you have built. It would be an act of profound self-betrayal. Your legacy is not defined by the woman you got, but by the empire you build. Your focus is on the horizon, not in the rearview mirror. The silence you imposed was not a temporary punishment for her. It was a permanent condition for your own ascent. You are not ignoring her out of spite. You are ignoring her because, in the grand scheme of your new reality, she has been rendered utterly and completely irrelevant. The day she began to doubt who you were becoming was the day it was already too late. The goal was never to make her miss you. The goal was to become someone she was never qualified to have. This is your final command. Solidify your transformation. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico and activate all notifications, because this is not an education. It is your new operating system. Give this video a like as a final, defiant salute to the weak man you left behind. And in the comments below, answer this one question. It is the most important question you will ever answer. When she tells the story of the man she lost, what is the one word you want her to use to describe you? Do not answer with emotion. Answer with strategy. Define your legacy. Claim your dominion.